The reason that I would want all parent communication followed up within 24 hours is to give parents that reassurance that they are being heard. Any parent meeting that is held, I would want attended by myself or the school counselor to ensure that everybody is heard and understood. I would also put into place that Mrs. Horton will arrive at school at the required time and will let me know if she's going to be late. This is to create accountability on her part and to let her know that I am paying attention and that we would together stipulate how progress would be monitored, and Mrs. Horton and I would follow up in 6 weeks to see what progress has been made. Third, Julie would be moved to another first grade class. Between what we know about what Julie's parents are saying, that she's crying and she doesn't want to go to school anymore, it appears that that relationship between teacher and student is damaged. And then with Mrs. Horton's actions of screaming at the parent has potentially damaged that relationship as well. So it would make sense to me to move her to a different classroom. Fourth, on professional development days, I would want to work with my entire staff on how to get along with those whom we may not agree with to help build the school community. And fifth, I would work with the school counselor to work with all students on how to handle difficult situations and how to work with somebody who they may feel is bullying them. After the 6 week period is up, Mrs. Horton and I would meet to review her progress and to make changes as necessary. And if the progress has not been made, then we will have to move to the next step of the discipline plan. The next portion in category 3 is resolving the issue. For the question is what's best for students? Moving Julie to another classroom can help to rebuild the positive feelings in the school for Julie, for her parents, etc. And if any other parents had complaints, I would look at it on a individual basis. We know that Mrs. Horton has been a Teacher of the Year candidate, so she has skill in teaching. And I'd like to try to help her rediscover her passion of teaching so that she can benefit students this year and in the future. By doing more walkthroughs is going to allow me to see what's happening more within that classroom. And with the counselor working with students, they can develop relationships with one another. And it also gives another set of eyes in the classroom and the students another person that they can talk to. By having professional development, my goal is to create a better environment for all students, staff members, parents, and the community by helping teachers to be able to communicate effectively with each other and with those that we work with, the stakeholders that are involved in the process of education. I'd like to incorporate a school-wide expectation plans with guidelines established on teacher and student expectations in all settings, creating the consistency in the school. And parents will have a way of seeing how their students are to be treated in the classrooms. Category 4, debriefing the problem. My thoughts. At first, the hardest portion of the situation was delaying my desire for immediate judgment. We're only given basically what Mrs. Wilson sees and Julie's mom's perspective or Julie's dad's perspective. We haven't heard what's happening in Mrs. Horton's class. So I'd like to be able to hear Mrs. Horton's side. However, Mrs. Horton yelling at Julie's father is unacceptable. And no matter the situation, yelling at a parent is not appropriate. I did appreciate how Mrs. Wilson stopped the meeting at that point in time rather than letting it continue to escalate. However, I did not like the fact that the meeting took place in a first grade classroom. I'd want to promote my school in a more professional manner. Parents are used to a certain standard. They're not necessarily used to sitting in first grade chairs or at a first grade table. So using my office or a conference room would have given the idea that the parents needs were considered prior to the meeting. I would also be curious on what information Mrs. Horton was given in regards to the parent meeting, so that if she was ill prepared with the grades by her own choice or due to lack of forewarning, because that could play a role in that situation. I am bothered by how long this has taken. If it's hitting the 6 week mark in school, why has nothing previously been seen or done? And like previously mentioned, knowing that Mrs. Horton is a Teacher of the Year candidate can provide some comfort because I know that she has skill and she has passion. And so we can either work on helping her rediscover that passion or encourage her to potentially look at doing something different, whether that be teaching a different grade level or moving out of the field of education. And that I need to keep in mind that until Mrs. Horton is not an employee of the school, that I need to respect her rights as well. So if somebody's asking, well, what are you doing about it? Well, I have to be, I will take your information into consideration that I collect data on all of my teachers. So that way it can't come back on me of, well, a parent said that you were going to get rid of so and so, or you were putting so and so on a plan of improvement. Category 5 looks at Standard 2. Standard 2 talks about the ethical conduct of teachers, and with this situation, I focused on 3 main categories. Category 1, in acting ethically and professionally in personal contact, relationships with others, decision making, stewardship of schools' resources, and all aspects of school leadership. Because based on the information that we were given, Mrs. Horton's relationships with her peers and with the students' parents has deteriorated, and we need to work on rebuilding that. I focused on Part D, safeguarding and promoting the values of democracy, individual freedom, responsibility, equity, social justice, community, and diversity, specifically on the social justice. If Mrs. Horton is yelling at her students, then this is unacceptable, and that I need to be more involved in that process. And then letter F, of providing moral direction for the school and promote ethical and professional behavior among faculty and staff. Again, getting back to the yelling or belittling peers, Mrs. Horton's actions have not been the greatest. And so I need to do a better job of setting that moral direction of what is and is not acceptable. How am I promoting academic success? With the information given, the academics of the school has been well. They've been doing well. I need to make sure that with this piloted reading program that it's being taught with fidelity and that all teachers are on board so that way the district can make the best determination of how this would benefit all students. I need to make sure that teachers are feeling like they are being treated equitably. When morale dips, often high quality teaching does as well. And that by hearing parents and responding appropriately to their feedback will continue to help the parents in buying in on the school's mission of teaching all students. How am I promoting the personal well-being? I'm going to start off by hearing Mrs. Horton and what she needs to be successful and can hopefully give her something to connect with. By moving Julie to a different classroom, we can work on restoring her and her parents' faith in the school system. By having the school counselor focus on lessons regarding each student's well-being and how to respond to difficult situations can help students learn how to adapt. And lastly, by focusing on professional development, on how to work with other adults, we can help teachers connect to each other and help to relieve some of the stress of teaching. How am I enhancing instructional capacity? By creating classroom expectations sets the bar for how teachers and students are to act. By being seen in classrooms and working to create a positive relationship with students and staff, I can hopefully reach the point where students or staff would want to come to me and talk to me about certain issues. And lastly, I'd want to give honest evaluations to my staff so that they can see what I'm seeing and we can work together to make sure that each person, including myself, continues to grow. Thanks for watching.